Okay, we're going to start handing out the CERT binders. These are unfortunately only classroom copies, so we ask that you not mark up, take out any pages. They do have to stay in the classroom, so at the end of the night, they'll stay in here. We'll leave them in the same spot, so when you come in tomorrow, you guys will have the same books. We don't have money in the budget to unfortunately purchase or print out the large amount of materials that are needed for it, but I can also provide you with an electronic copy of the CERT manual itself. And so if you have a flash drive, if you want to bring it this weekend, I can upload that manual to you electronically. Again, everybody has their own skill sets, their profession. Just because we're up here teaching the class doesn't mean that we're not learning as well. We can learn from you. As Anita is dealing with persons that have disabilities, functional needs, that is a big component in emergency management, is dealing with and learning how to assist the community that are disabled, that has functional needs. And so I don't deal with that population that often, and it's something that we do look for assistance. And so if we had Anita available, she would be able to assist us and tell us, okay, you know what, this is how we should proceed with this because this is how we've learned that we can function and it's a better way of communicating or other means of getting things out there. We have a few engineers in here, so there's a lot going on. We have a ham radio operator, and that's, again, a lot of stuff going on. And so just because we don't know it and we're up here teaching it, you guys are teaching us as well. And one of the things that everybody should hopefully walk away with is some knowledge on what you can do to help yourself, your family, your neighborhood, the kids you take care of, and whatever else you want to take care of here. So.
And I was just going to emphasize, before Brian did right now, was you guys all have one thing in common. You guys want to help people, your families, and yourselves. So, you know, it's great that you guys are taking that step to prepare yourselves. And, you know, because it's, I think, in our nature as humans to want to help people. And so I just want to applaud you guys for coming, especially on a Friday evening, and spending this weekend. Thank you. Right, if I can have everyone's attention, the group exercise is going to entail this. You're going to have 3 minutes. Right now, you guys are in your groups to decide who's going to be your team leader, and then also create a game plan. The exercise is so you guys can build a tower out of the material that we're going to present you within the next 3 minutes. And then you'll have 7 minutes to work on that to try to create the tallest tower without it falling down. You guys all understand?
Who's our engineer?
All right, 3 minutes, team leader, and a game plan.
It gives you a pretty good base.
Yeah, but it's not very strong, so you have to, that's what I was thinking, we need to be a little stronger at the base.
What if we put several of them going around?
Pretty
That's a
wide.
possibility, but you don't have a whole lot of tape. It's a very small tape.
You need a little bit to move.
Okay, let's build the base first.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I think but we need more tape.
Let's visualize, see whether it'll
Yeah, it should be
it'll
okay.
go first.
Yeah, should be okay. Should okay.
Should is one thing, let's just see if it actually functions and works.
I think it should, yeah.
4 minutes.
But it's okay, it's okay. Do we have tape?
Yes.
Do we have tape? Yeah, well, we need tape.
I know, I just want to
We
see
have
whether
tape.
Yeah,
it works.
should be okay. Should be okay.
They give you this if we already have one.
Right, so at this stage,
One
we've
roll
only
it
got,
So, but we need to tape here.
I understand that,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
we want to see whether it actually works.
Yeah, I think we should have one and another one more there, right? Yeah,
Right,
she should
so
be okay.
if we go a little bit wider,
Yeah,
we can
so
come up
can I get
even
tape?
a little bit taller.
Can we get another tape?
No, we can't get another
Yeah,
tape.
Oh, we
be a
can't.
little bit conservative, so we've
Okay.
only got a limited amount of
Okay, so we need
material.
to, okay. So I just need a first short one. I don't need it to.
Oh, I see, you're.
Yeah, so I just need
Yeah,
very short
Yeah,
one.
let's
Long way,
be
see,
sort of
this one just
conservative, because it
gave
only
itself
needs a
up.
little bit amount to
So
hold
we
it.
can
Okay.
There we
do
go.
tape
Here.
long way.
Can I get another one here?
Sorry.
Another one here?
Come on, guys, let's go. Work together, talk. Go.
You need to try to roll tight at the top.
Okay. Smaller guys.
Tighter.
Smaller guys.
Gotta be freestanding.
Let's go! 1 minute!
1 minute. 1 minute.
Reinforce that. Yeah, there we go. There we go. All right.
Reinforce it. Reinforce it.
Reinforce. Perfect.
Good.
I don't need any more.
Come on, guys. 30 seconds. 30 seconds. Let's go.
Reinforce.
Do your last touches. 30 seconds. 30 seconds.
Hands up. Let's see.
30 seconds.
Let's spread this out. Let's spread this out. Spread this out.
Careful.
All right, that's good.
We're gonna lose. Hurry. Oh, there we go. Oh.
8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, I'm done. Step away.
Everybody back to your seats right now. Everybody back to your seats.
There it is. It's holding. It's holding.
Yeah, nice. So if you could, just obviously we saw some of the difficulties that you had with this, but you guys' experience, kind of share those with us. How you guys communicated with each other.
As fast as possible was rolling up the paper
Okay.
and trying to make it stable. This is awesome right here. This is phenomenal. I mean, that's really neat. The tripod concept, that's
Yeah, I
great.
like that. I think they might have were inspired from the camera tripod. that's where I got my inspiration from. I saw that, like, okay. All right. Well, if I can have group 4, thank you guys. So who's the team leader in group 4?
That's me.
All right. Okay.
Designated to me. I think I found that one of the first things we did, we sort of had a group collective brainstorm of ideas. But then when the material arrived, it was sort of a mad scramble. We had to deal with the material that was a little bit off from the original plan, so we had to...
Elements of CERT, which, as you guys were in your groups, we purposely had you guys pick a team leader. Because as you'll see later on in the units, you'll see that the ICS structure where you have someone in command. So you guys communicated very well. You guys did collaborate. We're working a team effort. But most importantly, you guys trusted yourselves. You guys barely know each other for the past maybe half hour, and you guys were still able to work together. And earlier when we asked what type of skills you guys had, sometimes people said, oh, I really don't have a skill. But as you can see, people that have no familiarity with each other, aren't certain of their skills or positive of what they can do, there's always a role where you guys can serve. And so, believe it or not, if you may feel that you don't have a skill, like I said earlier, there's a position for you guys. If it's simply maintaining the crowd, helping someone from not going into, or preventing someone from going into a damaged structure. This exercise, to recap on it, it really incorporates some of those principles of CERT. So overall, you guys did a good job. We went around, we heard you guys. You guys were communicating with each other, talking and working together. You guys formed a plan, and so you guys want to give yourselves a round of applause for that.
One of the things that hopefully you'll get from this class is, this exercise, we intentionally made it stressful because in a disaster, nothing's going to go as you want. We had people running out of tape, people running out of paper. In the real world, we can't have everything that we want or need to handle the situation. And so there are some of those situations where you're going to have to make do or change your game plan and attack it from a different angle. I think by the end of this class, if we did this exercise again, we'd have a whole different outcome because everything that you guys will learn from it.
You guys that wake up call. But anyhow, tonight's unit, we're going to be covering, or our objective for tonight is basically at the end, you guys should all be able to describe types of hazards that affect the community, affect people, and the infrastructure. You'll be able by the end of tonight to identify the roles as individuals that you guys will play, the roles of the government, and the roles of the council or the community leaders. You'll be able to undertake personal or organizational preparedness. Will help you guys on how to develop different game plans or disaster plans for yourself and your guys' family. And lastly, you'll be able to describe different functions of CERT members. So the course preview. This course is broken up this evening and then tomorrow and Sunday. We'll be covering disaster preparedness, medical operations, light search and rescue, fire suppression. So just to look at some of them. But I just want to give you an idea of what you guys are going to expect. What's the agenda for the next couple of days? So we already did the introductory exercises. There are some images and videos that could be graphic. Just want to give you guys a heads up or warning on that. And so earlier I kind of spoke on what a disaster is. Like I said earlier, it simply overwhelms the existing resources. So if there's an emergency, kind of like, how many people here lived in the city or experienced a windstorm? Okay, a lot of you guys. So what made that a disaster is that we had to call other resources. Our local police and fire, emergency medical responders, they were overwhelmed. And so we had to get into a state of emergency so that we can get additional resources. So that's the difference between an emergency and a disaster. It takes it up to that next level where we don't have all the resources to be able to either suppress a fire or to overcome that disaster if it's an earthquake or, in that case, a windstorm. So there's three types of disasters. One of them is natural, the other one is man-made or intentional, and the last disaster is technological. So on a quiz, if I ask you what are the three types of disasters, these would be it. The natural disaster, people refer to it also as an act of God. Either it could be a hurricane, a tornado, an earthquake. Then you have man-made or intentional, which could be a terrorist act. It could be a bombing, 9/11, arson. And then you have technological, which can be items such as computer viruses or nuclear plants that fail. You guys said earlier that you guys experienced the windstorm here in Temple City. We had gusts about 90 miles per hour, which is pretty fast. Here, we had sustainable winds of 195 miles per hour. Their gusts were 235 miles per hour. Just to put that in perspective, if you guys experienced a windstorm, basically you have to multiply that by 2. And it was sustainable, so it was constant. And once again, I wanted to hit home so that you guys take this back and you share with your neighbors and let them know, hey, you can't predict this. There are certain elements to a disaster that, number one, they're unpredictable. I can't tell you that a month from now we're going to have an earthquake, we're going to have a fire. So that's why we have to prepare. The Japan earthquake, 9.0, very strong earthquake. It lasted up to 6 minutes. I believe 18,000 people passed. The earthquake was so strong that it led into a tsunami. That tsunami caused the power plant, I think it's called the Fukushima, thank you. The Fukushima power plant, their cooling system to fail. So what's interesting about this natural disaster is that, yes, you had a natural disaster because of the earthquake, you had damage to the infrastructure, caused a tsunami. The tsunami caused the power plant Fukushima to fail, which that led into a technological type of disaster. Because once again, nuclear power plants are considered under technological types of disasters. So you had two types of disasters in this case. Like I said, 18,000 people, and it lasted up to 6 minutes. I mean, on the West Coast, we felt some of the tsunami effects. More recent, we had the Boston Marathon, the bombing. Here you only had about 3 deaths, but you did have roughly about 260 injuries. Unexpected, once again, what's the element? It's a surprise, no one knows. What type of disaster is this? Man-made or intentional? Thank you, Bruce. World Trade Center, 3,000. Oklahoma City bombing, 1995, federal building. These are key threats. So if we have government buildings that people want to attack, such as City Hall, Fire Department, we have Temple City Sheriffs. So they're targets, they're potential threats. We have to be aware of those threats in our community so that we can be able to mitigate those. So now here we're going to move on to the government role. So once again, we're talking about roles and responsibilities. Government has a responsibility to make sure that we create some type of plan. Here it's called an emergency plan. And actually here I have it right behind me. This was approved by the state in 2010. This is the city's plan. emergency operations plan. So every city actually by law is required to have one. And so, as you can see here, each city is required to have one. And basically it's the game plan. If a disaster does happen, we'll open up this book, it's gonna tell us the authority, who's the command leader, who's the team leader, who has the job to do what. So in case there is a disaster, we're prepared as well, and that's government's responsibility. One of them. Community leaders. Community leaders, we're talking about, like I said earlier, council members. They allocate or appropriate funds for us to have these type of events. They're important or they're vital because they represent the residents, the businesses, basically their constituents, and they usually have a better pulse on the community. And so it's important to have their feedback and their involvement. And like I said earlier, part of it is also allocating funding so that we do prepare our community, so that we are, in case there is a disaster, well prepared. Also, that staff are trained. We make sure that the sheriffs, the fire department, emergency medical service providers, they're properly trained. We get trained so that we can pass that on, and in case something happens, we're able to react. The public, that's you guys. What's your guys' role? What's your guys' responsibility? Part of your guys' responsibility is to be better aware. Sign up for community alerts, being in this class. I'll talk about Nixle. Nixle is one of our alert systems. How many of you guys have heard of Nixle? Many cities have it. Okay. If you go to our website, you can sign up, and we'll give you information of any types of emergencies, even events that we want to spread to the community. That's a good source to sign up for that, and it's found at our city's website. Also, take training. You want to report suspicious activity. Why? Because it can lead to a man-made or intentional type of disaster. So, the goal of CERT is to make communities, like I said earlier, more safer, bring you guys in, give you guys some information. Hopefully, minimum, if you guys do anything, just take it back home and be able to protect yourselves, provide for your family, bare minimum. But if not, be able to also volunteer as part of our CERT call-out team, which we'll be organizing later. And that way you guys can also provide that type of assistance, because like we said earlier, when you guys are doing your introductions, you guys have one thing in common, which was you guys want to help people out. So if you guys are interested. So we want to identify the most common disasters. What are some common disasters? I know there's 3 of them. Earthquakes common. Yes, ma'am.
Wires down.
Well, yeah, electricity, it causes fire. Anything else?
Fires.
I'm sorry?
Tornadoes.
Yeah. I don't know. So here on these slides, I'm going to be talking about earthquakes because that's really what's most common for us. Yes, there's fires, but even the fires in Glendora, or if we have fires in the back hills over here, they're not. We have, I guess, like a buffer. We have all the homes before us, so it's not too much, and it's not really identified in our emergency operations or our hazard mitigation plan. But do we get those effects? Earlier today, how many of you guys know Billy, the mailman? No? No? 1, 2? He was walking around, and he had a dust mask. He was affected by the fire. Glendora, all the ashes that came over here, that still affects us. Even though it might not threaten our lives, but safety-wise, if we're breathing that in, if we're deciding to let our kids play outside, outdoors, when conditions might not be the best. This right here is a technical definition of what an earthquake entails. It talks about a sudden slipping or movement of a portion of the Earth's crust, and it's usually within 25 feet. Basically, an earthquake is, hey, if something's moving, that's an earthquake, right? Yeah. But this is the technical definition. Don't worry, it's not on the test. I can guarantee that. Some interesting statistics. Earthquakes, like I said earlier, I'm going to talk about that because it affects 15% of the population. And what that really means is 75 million people it affects. So we live in a earthquake disaster zone. That's a lot of people. So not just us, we don't talk about earthquakes, it's other organizations that also have earthquake preparedness. The scale, this is the scale is going to measure the intensity. Now this is very important. Who can tell me what on the Richter scale, what level would it have to be the intensity for a moderate type of earthquake? Wow, I'm sorry, can you repeat that a little louder, Bill?
5 to 5.9.
All right, great. You guys all heard that? All right.
Might wanna remember that.
Don't forget, remember Japan, 9.0. Yeah, off the scale. Off the scale. Sorry. So, during an earthquake, I mean, I can recall this since I was a kid. What do we do in an earthquake? Duck, cover, and hold on, right? Not stop, drop, and roll. That's a fire, all right? All right, now, don't get it confused. But I mean, we've been preaching this for many years. Like I said, back when I was even in grade school. You know, back when I was able to fit under the desk. You know, we were practicing this. So anyways, during an earthquake, if you're indoors, you want to stay indoors because there's dangerous items that may be falling debris, light posts that are outside. But also, if there's damage on the inside, if you see the ceiling collapsing, you may want to start thinking about, hey, maybe I have to move to the outside. But you just want to be aware of your surroundings. Because if you do go outside, you do have dangers, like I said earlier about the light poles, broken glass, things of that nature. If you're driving in a vehicle and you're in an earthquake, the best thing for you to do is to stop. So move to a clear, open area and stop. So what's the best thing to do in an earthquake if you're driving?
Stop.
What else? Alright, remember that one too. Alright, triangle of life. So triangle of life, there's this little, you know, exit out mark. Don't do triangle of life. How many people have heard of triangle of life? Got one hand? No one else?
Is that when you're in the corner?
The best way for me to describe it is to show you, is that what you're talking about right there? Triangle of life, it's like say, these are, whoops.
Yeah, walls.
These are kids, and here's a structure that's strong enough to, if something's falling, so say like this podium here, it's taller than them, and so when it falls, if say that wall falls over, that podium would hold some of the weight of the wall, and then they would be safe in this little area right here, this triangle, as you can see it creates. But, you know, we preach not to follow that. Research shows that the best thing to do is, what? Drop, cover, and hold on. So that's good that most of you guys have not heard of that, triangle of life. But believe it or not, it's something that is preached or is they inform the public of in other countries. So anyhow, so this is what, as a CERT member, or when you go back home, if there is an earthquake, this is something that you guys can easily do. This is what we want you guys to actually do when there is an earthquake. You want to, if there is any fires, put them out. Later on in the weekend, Julian under Unit 2 is going to teach you guys how to suppress a small fire. How many of you guys have ever used a fire extinguisher? Okay. Did you guys have to use it while there was a fire, or you guys learn on it or something? How did you guys have to use it?
Practice.
Practice? Okay, perfect. Awesome. You want to clean up spills. You want to look for any damage around your house. You know, go around, do an inspection, any cracks on the foundation, the stucco, if you have stucco on the walls. You want to look for any damages caused if there are any trees that fell or fallen, light poles have gone down. After you're done taking care of yourself and your family, you know, if you guys can go and check on your neighbors. You know, do that. Help turn off utilities if utilities need to be turned off. How many people know where the gas meter's at? Okay, okay. So alright, we'll show you how to even turn one off, if, you know, minimum, by the end of this training. So, earthquakes, they tend to have a impact on different items, our structures, the infrastructure, communication, but the important part is that we want to be aware of what kind of damage and how this plays an effect on you guys as being CERT members or waiting for someone to respond and give you guys or provide assistance for you or your family. So this right here is the Lone Crater earthquake, occurred in 1989, also known as the World Series earthquake, caused a lot of damage. What do you guys expect, or how should I phrase this? How do you guys think if you guys call someone during an earthquake that need help with damage to someone's transportation or infrastructure? What kind of problems is that going to create for our first responders? This is a delay, yeah. Number one, delay. You know, it stops us from assessing the damage. When we had the windstorm, one of our first duties was to go out and actually do an assessment. to look around to try to get an idea so that we can communicate that properly back to the command leader, back to the different management teams. So if we have trees like on Live Oak blocking our access for someone that needs help, you know, so the first responders can't get there. But just things to think of, because if they can't get to your house, if you need help, only you yourself are going to be able to provide for yourself. It prevents police from reaching certain areas. That was said well by Shane. Thank you. Okay, and it interrupts logistics, the flow of supplies. Now we're talking about structures to damage to structures. This is a photo right here of the Northridge earthquake that occurred in 1994. You guys remember that one? It's pretty big. It caused billions of dollars worth of damage.
Today's the anniversary.
Yeah. Someone told me that earlier. You guys told me? Yeah. Someone told me that earlier. But here we have a photo of a multi-unit complex, probably apartments. But when we think of structures to damage to structures, I think of homes right away. But don't forget, a hospital, a sheriff's department, the fire department. Those are all structures as well, and they're all susceptible to damage, just as our homes are. And so if those facilities go down, then we're going to be in bigger trouble. So just something to think about. Disrupted communications. How many people have landlines? Yeah, okay. So like 4 or 5. So what does disruption to communications mean? Basically, you're not going to be able to use your cell phone, because that's going to go down automatically. So if this is your only means to communicate with someone, then you might start wanting to think in investing in a basic landline. How many people have out-of-state contacts? A list. Do you guys have family members out of the state, out of the country? You know, they're going to worry about you guys.
If I can just touch base on that landline. If you have a landline, who has a cordless phone? Do you have a backup phone that does not rely on power? Because if the power goes out, your cordless phone doesn't work. And so, new technology does advance us, but it does hold us back as well. So if you have a landline, make sure you have a phone that does not need power to operate, that gets its power from the actual phone line itself.
Thank you. Utilities damage. Like I said earlier, 90% of the city had no power. You couldn't buy even a generator. You went to Home Depots that were local, they're all sold out. Costco's, these big wholesale stores like Sam's. Because I remember the neighbors telling me, hey, or the residents telling me, we have no power, you know, we don't have generators. It was chaos. No one predicted this one, right? What was one of the elements of a disaster? It's unpredictable. You know, so I just want to keep on reinforcing the fact that, you know, this could happen. You know, the big, everyone's always waiting for the San Andreas fault line, waiting for the big earthquake. You know, it's not a matter of if it's going to happen, it's a matter of when it's going to happen. Utilities, if we have damaged utilities, it's going to also increase public health. If people they don't have water supply, Katrina, you know, we had the sewers being backed up and being clogged, public health issue. So, like the lady in the back said earlier, we have damage to electrical lines, causes a fire. Once again, these are photos from the Northridge earthquake. I don't know if you can tell, we have like a sinkhole here in this area. Can you guys kind of see that with the shadow? Yeah. As a result of the damage to the infrastructure, the police are only going to address issues that have or tend to result in grave danger. So if you call and say, oh, my dog's missing or my arm's broken, they're not going to respond to that. Fire is going to what? Put out major fires if there's any fires, if they even can get to you. Emergency services are going to handle life-threatening calls. So it brings me to my last point right here at the bottom. Lower priorities will be met in other ways. That other ways is by you guys being properly trained, being able to take care of yourselves. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I just had a question. I noticed that under the utilities damage, the inadequate water supply, but you know, recently they had that spill from a manufacturer about coal or something in Virginia that threatened several cities, you know, in the state. and they've not had water for a week, so that.
That's a good point
It's not inadequate water, it's water supply threatened.
Yeah, so inadequate water supply here, she's saying it's not inadequate. This is just the way we're gonna be categorizing it as just inadequate water. And that could also mean, what you just stated
Oh,
earlier.
okay.
Yeah, it's just a general phrase, it's not being specific. We would categorize this, we're hoping this phrase catches out or is used as an umbrella to mean everything out, all of the above, basically.
Thank you.
Yeah, just like if you're on the beach, you have plenty of water,
But you can't do it.
but you can't do anything with that salt water. In a disaster, sometimes your water lines are gonna rupture and you don't have that water supply. Contaminated water is also, like you brought up, and so, it's all aspects of not having just enough water that you can drink or use.
Potable, potable, yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mhm. And if you guys have any questions or need clarification, just, feel free to raise your hand and we'll do our best to answer that question. So some hazards related to structures. Once again, disasters are unpredictable. Here right now, we're sitting in this building, in this room, and we could have an earthquake. A disaster could occur. And you have to be aware as when you enter, where are your exits, number one. What type of structure are you in? What kind of data, are there things hanging right here? We have Jillian and Brian underneath this projector. You gotta be aware of those things.
Yeah.
What's this wall made out of? This isn't, it's not gonna flex like a wood, a normal house. This is brick wall. So just be aware of that. Usually in a commercial building, or say like you go into an industrial park and you see all these corporate buildings, what do they tend to have a lot? They have a lot of glass compared to your house, right? They have a lot of windows. And believe it or not, broken glass and falling debris during an earthquake are the results of most injuries in an earthquake. Yeah, believe it or not. So can someone repeat that right now? Anyone? I'll give them a ticket. Okay. Did that hit home? Kind of? So the most injuries
are because of broken glass.
and falling debris. Yeah. Most injuries.
Skip that man a ticket.
Thank you, Brian. Once again, I just want to make sure that you guys are aware of the hazards from your home fixtures. Gas lines, gas pipes, are they flexible or rigid? They're rigid. So if you have an earthquake at 9.0, guess what is going to happen? It's going to rupture. Boom, exactly. So they're rigid because they want to be strong, but then that non-flexibility, just like this brick wall, if there is movement, it's going to break. So that's why I talked earlier about who knows where the gas meter's at, how to turn that off. And if you don't know how to turn one off, we'll show you later on in this training. How many people have your water heater strapped? Okay. That's a building code actually. That's a building code requirement. You're supposed to have, I think it went in effect, was it 2 years ago, right? 2011? Yeah, it's been a couple of years where you have to have your water heater strapped. Why? It's connected to gas, number one. But if in an earthquake, that's under a lot of pressure. Next thing you know, you're going to have all these water heaters breaking the roofs, falling, debris. So a lot of times when we're doing our job, one of them is making sure people have permits. And if people don't have permits, it's for safety. We stress the fact. The reason why you need a permit, we need to have a building inspector come out and make sure that whatever, if you're making an addition, if you're even just replacing the water heater, that it is up to code. And a lot of these reasons are for your own benefit, your own safety. There's damage from falling bookshelves. So if furniture in your house, you want to make sure it's strapped down. During our breaks, if you want, come up to this table and there's some samples of ways. The brand is called Quick Shake. Different items that thank you. Different items that just give you an idea of what you can do if you have a TV, strap it down. Bases. There's like this Quake putty that will hold it in place. Childproofing your cabinets. You have a bunch of nice chinaware, or if you just have dishes in an earthquake, those things are going to come out. If you have that child-proof cabinet log, it's going to hold it in place. So, just ideas to think of. Yes, sir.
So the situation you just mentioned about most of that because of the shaking effect, right? Because of the shaking.
Of course, yeah, if you're gonna be moving side to side, you know, and there was 2 earthquakes earlier. Brian, there's one in Fontana?
There's one that was on Wednesday morning in Fontana, it was a 4.4.
Yeah.
And then the next night, there was one in Corona, that was a 3.8. And another one that later on that evening in Fontana again, that was a 3.2. Did anybody here feel those? Maybe the Wednesday morning one?
Oh my God.
Supposedly there was one in Northridge today at 2.9 that I heard reported on the news this morning.
2.9 is not too bad.
No. It's not.
I didn't even feel the 4, what'd you say, what, the 4.2?
3.8.
Yeah, 3.8, yeah, I didn't feel that one. I live in Corona. So the damage to the electricity, you might get electrical shock, and also that can result in a fire from, basically if you have a 9.0, as we saw the one that hit in Japan, you saw the road come up, right? You guys remember that picture? Yeah, the house is gonna be, I mean, we'll be lucky if they're sitting on the foundation, right? So just imagine all those internal things in that building that are basically they're hazardous. So now we're going to be talking about home and workplace preparedness. But before we do so, I do have a video. You guys feel like taking a break? You guys need a break? Restroom? Water? No?
To the video.
All right, to the video it is. We'll move forward. Jump.
All right, I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay, so who's gonna do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies? I can forget to do a list for us. Thanks, pal.
Well, I think we couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
What do you guys think? A little funny? A little humor? Alright? So now that's basically a segue into getting prepared for a disaster. We want, like that family was doing, was making fun of people, you know, obviously not making plans. And we want to plan for disaster, some of the necessities that you're going to need. There's obvious necessities, but then also personal necessities. You need medication. Who is in your household? Do you have grandparents, elderly, young ones, animals, your pets? They're part of the family as well. So anyhow, for preparing for disaster, you want to know local hazards. There's not too many hazards in Temple City that are addressed in the mitigation hazards plan. We do have a couple hazardous material plants that operate just south of the railroad tracks. Even the Santa Fe Dam isn't really addressed in the plan. If, say, it overflows, only a portion of the northeast portion of the city would possibly be affected by a flood if that dam was to fail. You want to consider important elements of the disaster preparedness. This is on you guys. Your guys' skills are important. The skills that you do have, get additional training. That's part of the element. When there's a disaster, how fast are you going to respond? During the exercise, we gave you 7 minutes. You guys have 3 minutes to prepare and plan ahead to try to erect the tallest tower that's going to sustain or be able to stand the longest. And so same thing with the preparedness, is you want to consider what if? What if there is an earthquake? What if I even just have a fire, an emergency at my own house? What if you just have a fire? What if my kid trips and breaks an ankle or a leg or has a cut or breaks open their head? We will show you guys, Brian will cover the medical operations in the later days, but you will acquire those skills, be able to make decisions quickly. And I kind of already talked about addressing specific needs for yourselves, your family. So now some protective actions. You want to be able to assess the situation, and this is where your skills are going to come in. Be able to, if something does happen, are you going to decide to go inside or stay inside or go outside in an earthquake? Are you going to decide to, if you do decide to stay in, are you going to shelter in? These are things that you want to start thinking about when you're creating your disaster plan. As it shows here in this bullet, you want to decide if you're going to stay or change locations. You want to be able to seek clean air. I'll talk a little bit on the next slide about building a safe room in your house. Start thinking about, believe it or not, the best safe room is one that doesn't have any windows. But I know, I believe it's Unit 6 or Unit 8 that Alfredo will talk more about some of the things you guys can do to build a safe room in your house. Storing proper supplies, food, what types of utilities to have. So in a protective action, you want to protect from falling debris, because what did we say earlier in an earthquake, most people are injured by broken glass or falling debris. Now, if for whatever reason you get trapped, you don't want to waste or spend your efforts, your energy, yelling for help if you're trapped. Myself, just giving this presentation, I had to take water breaks because I've been talking and catching my breath because I'm not used to speaking for this type of duration. So just imagine being trapped. So what's recommended is actually in your disaster kit is to have a whistle. We had a whistle up here, yeah. Having a whistle in your pack, because this is going to help you guys save a lot of energy. And if you don't have a whistle, once again, you still don't want to yell, because I can't explain to you the physics of noise, but how about I describe it? How many people drive around by a car and I hear the boom, 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 a thump? It's music, believe it or not, that thump, that bass, right? You hear the thump, you don't hear the words, but you hear the thump, the thum, thum, thum. Well, that's what's recommended. They want you guys to pound, hit on, if there's a pipe, bing, bing, believe it or not, that's gonna be heard a lot easier than actually yelling or saying words like, come help me. It's the pounding. Most people who are saved or who happen to be in a structure where it collapses are actually found by individuals pounding on a structure, not yelling, okay? But have you guys experienced that though, on a practical basis when you're driving on the street, you hear a car without music, you're like, where's that coming from? You can hear it from like down the block. Yeah, right? So that's why. Removing contaminants. Say my body becomes contaminated. How should I best, wash and remove those contaminants? Should I start from my feet, my knees, my head to toe? Which way? Head to toe? Okay, you guys all see why? You guys understand? Because if I start cleaning down here, then I move up here, I'm going to contaminate myself again. Okay? So, sheltering in. If you decide to shelter in stay in that safe room, like I said earlier, you want to be able to know you have enough supplies. If you do decide to extend that sheltering in, you at least want to have 2 weeks. 2 weeks worth of supplies. And we'll cover some of those supplies later on in the presentation. Also, you want to have a 3-day disaster kit. And I'm briefly speaking on this, don't worry, we'll jump into it more into depth on the next slides.
So I'm sorry, regarding the sheltering place, if you like a ceiling or room, especially during the earthquake, how can you be sure the room is still safe?
Well, so going back earlier, when you have an earthquake, you're making a decision, you're assessing. Are you going to decide to stay in, stay out? But if you guys recall the earlier slides, what did I say for you guys to do? Put out small fires and check your structure, check for any damage. You're going to go outside, and so that's part of your assessment. Of course you don't just stay inside and, oh, well, I don't know how the building is. You do your assessment, and don't worry, we'll cover this more into detail. But like I said earlier in the slides, you do your assessment, you make sure that there is damage, then you do decide, no, there's a tree falling on my house, I don't think it's safe for me to stay in here, then you're going to go out. But if there's no damage to your house, no indications that your house is not sound, not safe, then of course you're going to decide to shelter in. But I can't make that decision for you because we're talking what ifs, and you will have to make that assessment yourself. Sounds like Brian.
Generally, you don't shelter in place for an earthquake. Sheltering in place would occur if there was a chemical agent released in the air, or if you have back east or the Midwest, the hurricanes, or something that if you go outside is going to cause you to either become ill, possibly die, or severely harm you. And so sheltering in place is for those types of incidents. For earthquakes, again, the standard that we teach is drop, cover and hold, and then you go out. You don't want to run out during an earthquake because you have a lot of stuff that can happen, especially in Northridge earthquake. You'll see some pictures around coming up on the news and different stuff. You have a lot of the brick and a lot of the facades that fell on there, and there's a story actually that in some of our emergency meetings that we have in Mexico, there was a group of people in a community center that were meeting. They had the earthquake. People from Southern California knew what to do. Other people that were there weren't sure. They survived the earthquake because the Californians knew what to do. But the other group survived a little bit, but there was an aftershock and they went running out, and they were killed because the front of the building fell onto them as they were running out. And so be careful on what you do, and there's a lot of thought that has to go into going out. You're not just going to run out, you're going to assess the situation, and we're going to teach you guys how to try and do it as safe as you can.
Yeah, we'll teach you how to properly assess, because as being a CERT member, we do have light search and rescue. You are required, or you are called upon to go into some of these structures that are damaged and look for individuals that may need help. But sheltering in place, like Brian said, it's more for air contaminants, because when you do shelter in, you're covering vents with sheeting, you're covering the doors, you're taping them off with duct tape. So like Brian said, it's more for air contaminants. But it's either way, you still want to have the safe room in case that does happen, or simply for the fact that you'll know you'll have supplies for up to 2 weeks. So not something bad to develop. And you want to have a 3-day disaster kit. So in case, just like the fire, if you need to go and run, you have a go bag, here, a 3-day disaster kit. And like I said, it's more of a CERT kit, but it does have some items that you can put in an emergency kit, but we'll talk about that in the next slide.
And in your handouts, not the PowerPoint slides, but the other handout, there are items that are in there that tell you what we would recommend to put in a go bag or anything, so that you can take home at your leisure, and you have homework beyond this class being completed to put stuff together yourself.
And I don't know, when I was taking the class and I was getting all this information, I was excited. I mean, one, I like to kind of spend money, so I had an excuse to go and buy some cool toys, some picks, some shovels, and of course it was, hey, this is for the family, this is in case of an emergency, and if you guys want to pitch it that way to the wives or loved ones, husbands, that's not a bad idea. All right, we have another video. Stu.
So I've come up with a family emergency plan.
Great. What is it?
It's difficult to talk about, so I'm not telling you.
How will we know what to do?
You won't.
I'm so glad I won't have to remember anything.
Me too. Thanks for this, sweetie. Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
Conscious, so he'll be conscious for this one. So I've already looked it over. So where does your arm hurt? So we're feeling his arm, right there? So it's right by his elbow, okay? That's where it hurts. Right now I don't see the bone protruding or anything, so it looks like it might be a fracture internally. So there's no blood at this point. So, yeah, it hurts? Okay. So he's in a lot of pain right now. So the best thing that we could do to stop that pain is to splint his arm so that it doesn't move. So we have two things that we could use. We have this, and as Brian showed you, it's pretty sturdy. So it's not something that will bend, but another thing that you could use that's pretty crafty is a magazine. And I'm going to use a magazine just to show you how creative you can be when a disaster strikes. So I'm going to lift his arm up and just be very careful.
The part of this too is you don't
I'm going to do this arm just for demonstration purposes so that you guys all see what it is I'm doing, so his body won't block the other arm. And I'm going to be facing this way, but when you are doing this, you always want to face your victim so you have a better idea of what you are doing and you can clearly see. So the magazine, it doesn't look sturdy, but when you put it together and you're actually splinting, it does become a pretty sturdy device. So this arm is experiencing pain. So we're gonna do our best so that we don't cause more pain to our victim. Okay, so we're gonna lift up our arm, and maybe if he could help us, and that'd be great. We wanna put that magazine there, and we're gonna wrap it. So once you have that magazine, it becomes pretty sturdy. Freddie, try to bend your arm. Try to bend your arm. No, like, it's pretty sturdy, right? So it's a pretty sturdy device that you can use if you're in a situation where you're gonna have to get creative. So you just splint the area as best as you can. You know, this isn't going to be perfect. Right now we're in an area where it is safe, but when you're doing this, you're gonna be on the triage mat, and you know, it might get chaotic and crazy, so you're gonna have to try to do the best that you can in your situation. So we're just gonna wrap this around, and see, sometimes it slips, and this is paper, so it does slip pretty easily, and we're gonna try to get it as tight as we can. Not tight enough like we would with a tourniquet, because we don't want to cut off his circulation, but we do want to get it tight enough where it's not going to slip out if we were to move him to a different area. So I'm going to go ahead and just use this whole roll for his arm. See, it keeps slipping, so you just have to do the best that you can and get it as tight as possible.
And that's where if you need to originally start with some tape and tape over, just be mindful not taping on the skin.
So you want to tape over the bandage that you put on, or if this was a smaller person, and the arms were slightly skinnier, then you could tape over the paper that this magazine does have.
Or you can do this.
So these are things that you have to be mindful of, because in an emergency, you're not going to have cardboard cutouts that are just for his arm. You're not going to have all
in
the
this
stuff
situation,
he has.
let's go ahead and take.
So let's show you a different way on how to do this. That might work a little bit better than this roll right here.
So, take care of that.
Not nosebleed. My nose is running.
And so, if his injury is on the elbow, we want to stabilize above and below that injury. So it's going to be trying to stabilize as much as we can with his shoulder and then his wrist to keep him from moving around. If it's the elbow, you can put some 4x4. And we can take the tape, and what that does is it prevents it from sticking to his skin and pulling his skin off if they're later trying to take it off. And then what you would do is take the roller gauze and wrap it up. Now, how are we going to stabilize his shoulder? Tape his arm down. To what?
To his body.
To his body. And so, let's go ahead and go ahead and stand up. Right, so if the injury is at the elbow, the going above and below is what we want to minimize movement. And so he's going to put it down, and what we can do is take a few other things that we have that we can bind it to his body. This is what we call a triangular bandage. It's a multi-use item, and so if we needed to put it around him, and we have a couple of them that will tie off here, and it's going to keep it close to his body. We don't want to minimize this arm, so we would have him pick up his arm, and then we would tie it off under so he still has use of his right arm. And so that's taking care of that type of splinting. Let's do bandaging.
Okay, so for bandaging, as Brian went over earlier, bandaging is to stop that blood flow, to stop that blood loss. So as Brian pointed out, earlier he had like a cut right here, and the bandage, was just bleeding through. What would you guys do in that situation? If you had already put that bandage on, what would you do? Put another one. Would you take that bandage off? No. When would you take that bandage off?
You wouldn't.
You wouldn't until?
A medical trained person did.
Right, or say if there's medical personnel hasn't arrived yet, and you know that that bleeding has stopped, you can then move it, flush it with clean water at room temperature, and then you continue to put another bandage on, and then dress that wound as well.
And so what that would look like is this. So 4x4 is your typical one. Place it on. This is roller gauze. They come in different lengths, different sizes. when you're placing the gauze, when rolling it on the victim's arm, you want to do it so that the top is the actual roll, and so when you're going around the arm, it's rolling. If you do it the opposite way with the roll on the bottom, you're pulling it and you may drop it and it may slip and fall and unravel on itself. And so if you guys want to come closer, go ahead and come on up through. You leave a little bit excess and you tuck it under, and then we tie a knot on that, and this way it ties off so that it's not a loose strap. Now if we need to secure this arm, because now he's fractured, so what we're going to do is have him bend his arm, and you want to support the injury. And so I have two hands, I can't hold his hands and get the materials that I need to splint it. So what can I do to solve this problem?
Have him hold it.
Have him hold it. So you can say, go ahead and hold your arm. And so what he's going to do is hold it in that position. So now he's holding it, and I'm free to do what I need to do. We'll get the splint if we need to, and we'll splint it if we have to. If it's just an injury that is a heavy bleeder and we still want to secure it, we can do the triangular bandage. This becomes a sling. You take the top of the triangle and you tie a little knot in the end of it, and it creates a pocket for the elbow to go into. So you slowly stick backside again, asking him, can you go ahead and lift your arm a little bit? And we're going to slide it underneath his arm and across his chest. We're going to take the other one and we're going to come across his shoulder, so it creates a pocket on here. And so now that we have that, you can take his arm out. Go ahead and take your arm out and support it again, put it underneath. So now we're going to adjust it so that it's a proper fit, because if the sling is loose and we don't tie it off tight, his arm's going to be flapping and it doesn't serve the purpose. You want his elbow to be as much as possible in that pocket, so it's going to help support it. And then we're going to come and tie off. You don't want to tie off behind the back of the neck, because again, your spinal cord is running down the back of your neck. If you have to lay down on the backboard, you have this knot that's digging into the back of your neck, and it may pinch your nerve back there. So you want to tie off on the side. And you want it to be loose enough, and so go ahead and let go. So now his arms support it. If we see that it's not supported enough, we can pull this side up and adjust accordingly. Once we tie off, this is still going to be annoying. It's going to dig into your neck. And so what we can do is you take some more of your roller gauze and you stick it in there to give a little cushion. And then we take the second triangular bandage. Now we want to bind it to his body to keep it from moving and stabilize that injury. And it doesn't have to be pretty. And this should actually be in more of an elevated position. When you're doing that, you want it up there, and so when you bind it, if he's moving down, if you have to hike out of the mountains or the canyons, he's not going to have his arm swinging around. So what we're going to do is we'll break up into two groups. Jillian and Freddie will go ahead and monitor you guys. If you have questions, they'll be available to answer those.
Fortunately, don't go in your skin because you have pants on.
Like something like that.
And if you need to cut it,
You
there's
can
one right
take
there.
tape.
Too long or
No, but you take.
Not tape it down?
whatever you think would work.
and you take
Oh,
this.
across there, so I'm not putting anything on his skin.
Yeah, well, it's cheap blue tape, so it's not as strong.
Try on some duct tape.
So we want to ask you to offer this one.
And then you would tape it again, and then if we need to, because you have weak tape, then you can redo it with this.
Okay.
And then you would tie off and cut and do different.
Okay, so if you're gonna do that, you've got to tape down first, and then you're gonna go ahead and do that because it's just painter's tape?
Yeah.
Would you tape this down, or would you
No, I would
tie a
just-
knot to start?
On the other side, I didn't see.
Okay.
And then if we need to go around or whatever. But also something like this, you don't need to wrap the whole leg.
Right.
This is the splitting.
Just there and
So-
there, above
so
and
you-
below.
If you need to, you can cut this and then start again here, do maybe around the ankle, so maybe 4 spots that you would tie off, ankle, here,
does she have an
not on the
injury
injury,
right here?
above,
Okay.
and depending on how much.
Before using the. Yes, before using that. So you want to use something like this, okay? And you wrap it around. What about this? Is it the same? This can be, but this isn't really for blood. This is maybe to secure, say if you fractured, your elbow, or say if you fractured your leg down here to keep that really, really stiff from moving. Where this is for blood. This is what she's bleeding. So this wouldn't work so well, but this would work better. Okay. Thank you.
Cut out, it's here, if it's like this is, if you try and keep your arm in this position, and an awkward position, your normal way of keeping that arm is going to be this way. That feels more comfortable now, right? Because this way, you're lifting up and you're creating that
Oh, okay. Something inside. Maybe something soft. You need something to put inside the soft. Yeah, maybe bandana. You can use extra packing, something like this that you can use to kind of keep it from.
Want to lay down? No? Okay.
So what you're doing is flipping something in.
Try and keep it, past the space there.
Right? That works.
It's not gonna be pretty.
She's gift wrapping you.
Scissors in this.
It would be better too, right? Or something. Like we said, you can use anything to stabilize, right? You want to use anything that's going to stabilize it. You can even use a magazine like they showed over there, so you guys can use all that. Okay? So then you want to go ahead and put that together. There you go.
That's good.
Even if it's not exposed, it's still be easy. My son broke his arm.
You wouldn't
severing an artery
tie
still
together
inside.
unless he has frantic reasons for kicking his leg, which I don't know if you would exactly. So if it's causing you pain,
You want to tie it?
we just want to stabilize it. So if he is transported or is moved around, it would stay.
So on this one, what we want is that her arm is going to be in a downward position, and that's going to stabilize it even more. Okay?
So basically, your hand inside.
Yeah. So if you want to turn your arm, if you can, if it doesn't hurt, there you go. And then see if this can go right there. You want to hold on to, yeah. So you can do that, and if that doesn't feel comfortable, then you can just go back in with your fingers, and so that you can create that tighter and a more stable position.
So yeah, it's not going to look nice. You have to work.
Well, yeah, you have to, not go for style.
Exactly. We're not trying to look good out here.
Who did this one?
So whatever works.
With this, what we want to do, what's the injury?
Broken
leg. This wouldn't really work so much if it was a broken leg, because you want to have it higher and up supporting, so you actually use another one. This would be more stabilizing an ankle injury.
Oh, what's this one? Or
I'd like to see it back.
got.
So with this one, if we're going to do it also, you have too much play here. So if we're going to use this, we want to have it as tight as possible, and you want it to support it. Because if it's not supported, this bone, if it's her shin bone, still can move. And so if it's something that you want to do,
It's called good sleep. Okay, lay back down. Support your arm.
And then remember, ask him to hold his arm up. It might not be functioning, so you have to hold it up.
All the way up?
As far up as he can, if it hurts, he's better. But if you have to double up, or, maybe even a blanket.
That was my idea. My idea was mark his head in the
I'm
Sorry, not gonna work. Help you.
Alright, is everybody gone through?
Well, one more, right here.
Okay.
Patient
She's
died.
in so much pain.
Killing me.
Alright, here, thanks guys.
I guess.
But yeah, that blanket's really strong. I mean, I was surprised.
Here we have our victim. In the video they talked about, you know, you might not want to approach them if they're not able to see you. You don't want to startle them as it is. So the best way to do it, if it's possible, is to, from this angle, if they are conscious. Here, we'll pretend Chan is awake because that way he can try to actually do something. If not, he's just going to be kicking back right here. So first off, before you even get closer to the victim, you want to assess the situation, correct?
Yes.
Why?
Safety.
Safety, great, awesome. You guys don't want to be victims yourselves. So as you're approaching, I'm going to go ahead and squat down because I already did my assessment. I feel comfortable. I feel confident in my skills. And so I'm going to try to help this victim. Hello, sir. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello? Oh, yes? Is it okay? I'm going to go ahead and do an assessment. I want to check for any injuries. I'm going to try to help you. Is that okay?
No.
Okay. Okay, so why is that important?
You check the area to see.
Okay, I already did that, but
Consent.
approval. If not, you're not going to be protected with the Good Samaritan law. Okay?
Besides that, he might fight back.
That he might fight back. He may be injured or he might just be scared as well. But if he says, and if he's conscious and says, you know what, I don't want your help, you have to respect that. If he's missing the bottom portion of his body, first off, I'm not even going to feel comfortable trying to do any type of work on him. But if he's saying no, it's no.
What if he's mentally not there?
If he still says no, it's no. Because you go to court, are you a mental health professional to know that this person doesn't have the mental capacity? You know, what's your training? What's your skills? Are you a doctor?
No.
Legally, that's what the kind of questions they're going to ask, and now you're in trouble. That's just a reality. Of course, earlier we all talked about it's in our human nature to want to help people, and that's what you want to do. And this person, hey, for whatever reason, no, it's okay. Move on to the next person. Greatest good for the greatest number. So don't worry. If you have in mass casualties, there's going to be more victims for you guys to try to help out. If he says no, we're leaving.
We respect the.
Yeah, we respect his wishes.
Okay, so
okay.
how do we go about taking ID from him that we can use?
No, we're not going to be doing that. We're just going to be doing a quick head-to-toe assessment. The assessment is conducted after the triage, after the light search and rescue. This is where light search and rescue has taken the person out, the victim out, and we're in a treatment area.
Okay.
So this is different from triaging. This is actually giving treatment. Okay? So I'm going to quickly go over it just so that you guys are familiar, and then you guys will get with your buddies, and then you guys are going to perform the head-to-toe assessment. Hello, sir. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Is it okay for me to perform an assessment? I want to see if you have any injuries. Try to help you.
Yes.
Okay. He said yes. So now let's go ahead. We're going to move with what? We're going to start with the head.
The head, the bottom.
Correct. You guys want to get closer? You guys get closer. I'm going to put my hands next to his ears. You don't want to manipulate the neck. Why not? It's fine. I don't know that. We don't. Yes, we don't know if he's injured or not. So don't manipulate the neck. You can raise. Check behind him. I'm checking behind him. Checking the neck to make. You just want to. Hands are a little cold.
Yeah.
You want to check to any abnormalities. Is the brain. If you quickly start feeling yourself, you kind of know what's normal. You kind of. Okay, that's what the brain, the neck's supposed to feel like. If you feel like a bump.
Okay, what about his back?
We'll get to that. Yeah, we'll get to that. That's last. Yeah, that's last. So I'm checking here, using the thumbs. Feel. Cheekbones. What's the number one reason why people don't breathe?
Tongue.
Let's open that up a little bit. All right, he's breathing. And another indication that you can tell if someone's breathing, you look here, your chest, is it rising, dropping?
Rising and dropping.
Or you can hear it. But depending on the environment, it's too loud, it might not be this quiet, you won't be able to hear it. Okay, so we're good here. The neck, you can see the Adam's apple, commonly referred to. It's not just out of the area, it's here, straight, so we're good. So now, you can move to one side, either your left side or right side. It's up to you guys what you feel more comfortable with, or also the environment. Maybe he's up against the wall, so I can't go here. I gotta go here. So now, We did the head, we did the neck, now shoulders. Checking the shoulders, collarbone. I can go ahead and push down on your victim when you're practicing. You want to put pressure, squeeze, and just looking for any abnormalities once again. Go down to the arms, forearm. What am I going to do here?
Check his capillary.
You guys see that? It's pink.
Yes.
Hold, release. If it's 2 seconds, he's good.
Mm-hmm.
All right, great. So here, go across, check his arms. Now, if you feel like the person's too big for you, you can go around him, start over here again. So you don't have to go across. I feel comfortable. I can reach over, check. Okay? Doing the sides. Working myself down to the hip. Good, good, good. With this portion of your hand, you're going to check right here, the chest. Apply some pressure. Good. You guys recall the way they crossed it? Here you have like the belly button area.
Yes.
So 4 sections.
Mm-hmm.
Check the abdomen. Push. You right there? You're awake, remember? You okay, sir? Any pain? Talk to them. So now hips. Squeeze them.
Does this hurt? Basically, you're asking them, does this hurt?
Oh yeah, you ask. If they're unconscious, if there's pain, run. You'll hear that. You know. So moving over the hips, apply the pressure. Just looking at. We can open up. If you can reach over, you're just feeling. Well, besides fine, looking fine, you're trying to feel for any abnormalities. Perhaps because here you have the pant. His leg can be broken. It could be open here, and you can't see it with the clothes, but you can feel it. So if he's all good, can you move your toes, your feet? Okay, now we have to check the back. So I want to leverage his weight. So I'm going to cross his leg here.
Just do his arm and you can flip it
Hip, shoulder. Oh, I'm sorry. Thanks. Here, let's start over. I felt comfortable reaching over, but to make it easier, that way you can get a little closer. Don't get too close, because then when you try to move them over, you're going to be here. You won't be able to roll them. Hit, pull. You're just feeling. Any abnormalities, any puncture wounds? If not, put them back down. And that concludes your head to toe assessment. So go ahead and buddy up. And
we don't squeeze his toes or anything.
You don't have to take off your shoes. No. If someone has sandals, then go ahead, you can do it. But in this case, you don't have to. Ready? So buddy up.
Bruce broke his hip 7 weeks ago.
7 weeks ago?
Yeah.
Actually, 8 weeks.
8 weeks? All right, I lied.
Oh, okay.
That hurt?
This is not a massage.
More buff than I
A little harder, please.
Over here.
Sorry.
So let me know when you feel pain, okay?
Anything here?
No.
Is pain here?
No.
Pain here?
Pain here?
So far, no.
Good.
Pain there?
How about that? Anything?
All you're doing is apply pressure.
You don't know me to do. Alright.
You just apply pressure. If you want to test yourself.
All the way to the legs, yeah?
Chest.
You grab the top of the triangle, make a little knot like this. And then what this knot's gonna do, it's gonna create this little pocket.
So if Freddie's arm was broken and I could bend his elbow up towards his body, and he already has, something in place like we talked about earlier that stabilizes that arm. So then if his arm was broken, he could do this without causing pain to himself. Then what we could do after that's already secure, we get this, put that knot at the bottom, creates a pocket for his elbow. so his elbow can sit comfortably right there. And then you put this around his body right here, and you bring it around back. So turn around so they can see. So you see how this works? This is very, very creative because we don't have slings, you know, at hand. And then instead of tying it right here, because if he were to be transported and have to lay down, it would be digging into his spine right there. So that's what you don't want. So you want to tie this off more to the side so that it's not affecting him. And then we can adjust it more or less. Say if he doesn't feel supportive or he feels like, you know, his arm might fall out, we can adjust it based on what he tells us that he needs. So these are some things that you can do and think about when you guys are, you know, practicing on each other.
So if we need to use a pillow to support the injury area, what kind of and also we don't have a tape on hand.
Right.
What kind of material should we use to
for
tie
a pillow?
it?
Well,
Yeah.
tape is most effective, but I mean, if you have something like this, you know, even sheets from the bed, you could rip, you know, the sheet into pieces, and the sheets are pretty strong. Exactly, and tie it around the pillowcase.
As long as it goes around.
Oh, okay.
Exactly. I mean, some guys are a bigger stature where we couldn't get something like this around them, so you know you have to think about longer pieces, or you have to double up. So it's things like that.
Just got a funny question. The pillow is big, so we just drop the feet up and then.
Yeah, exactly. And
Yeah.
a pillow is easier to work with because, I mean, it serves the same purpose that this does, except it wraps around your ankle this way. So
what this
it's
is
more
too big for
supportive.
them?
Well, even if it's, I mean, it might be too big for somebody, but in my opinion, I'd rather have something that's supportive where I'm not feeling any more pain or I feel a little comfortable than worrying about, oh, it's so bulky. I feel like,
Maybe
you know.
on the side or something.
And you know, different things work for different people. So
Pretty-
much
pretty
gauze
rigid,
as you
yeah.
need,
Yeah, so
and
this-
try to stop the blood.
yeah,
you
this
know,
is the
wrap
main
this
thing.
around, not
If
too
we're gonna
tight
do,
again,
you wanna
just wrap
actually
it
probably
around.
use
You do
a couple
stuff
of
like
them. You
that,
tie
so
off
that
one
when
on
you
top,
try to
and maybe
squeeze
one there.
or-
Or if you only have
you would
one,
try to
what you
stop
can
the
do is
blood.
untie it,
So then, yeah,
All of them on
set,
the-
and we can make it,
so you tie that there.
Tie to
You know, don't make it
different
so tight.
and we can make it a little
But
bit
just
wider,
enough, yeah,
so now we have this whole thing, and so when we're
Oh.
tying on,
There you go, exactly.
Oh, okay.
So then you have
Okay.
nine, you have excess, but it's not gonna be pretty.
and we want it
It's not
on the
gonna
side,
look
so we're
nice.
gonna.
You can use any tape
now
that
if I
you
tie
have
it
on
off
hand, you gotta use
here,
what you have. So then if you wanna try to do these
we
on
wanna
hand,
put something here so
definitely
it's
more than
not
welcome
digging
to.
in. So now his arm's not moving.
So you guys get a feel for what it's like. I mean, in an emergency situation, it's not gonna be calm. You're gonna have to do,
Yeah.
you're gonna have to use resources.
The
that you
distraction
have.
is a little bit
You know, you're
loose,
not gonna
but
have a
once
big
you
day
tie
pause that you're-
in the really tight,
Whatever you
and
have,
really
that's
tight.
what
So
you're
this
gonna do.
is actually.
You save it. We usually save it.
And you would put,
Yeah, exactly. I mean, because I don't really
Fulfill the force.
Split's a trick.
yeah.
Split, if you want to try split, you can just split.
So this is what I said, like
Yeah,
the
go ahead.
force.
Yeah,
the
you
whole
can try it.
There you go.
So what's broken? The arm, your elbow, your arm, what's hurting, where's it hurting at?
Let's say his elbow.
All right, okay. So
His
then
elbow's
if
squeezed.
his elbow's broken, we're gonna have to
A
secure.
brace.
Exactly.
And you know that's gonna hurt like
It's
crazy.
gonna hurt. So I'm gonna let you do it.
Alright, so we got this here like this.
Yes.
I need duct tape.
You need gauze too, because you don't want to tear off his.
Alright.
Exactly.
So nurses have done that in the hospital.
I've never done that.
And they do
So
those
we're gonna do
checks.
it something like that because the gauze square itself isn't big enough. So we're just gonna.
It would be a two-man job putting a skin on though. I mean, if he was like, if it was really broken.
Yeah, it would be.
he
But
had
you
no-
might not,
no-
you might not have somebody like a buddy to help you out.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
you would have to kind of work with what you got. And if he's conscious and awake, then you would have to tell him, can you hold this up while I get the gauze?
Ooh.
You would have to tell him that. And it may be hard for him, but if it's gonna help him and make him better, then that's what we're gonna have to do. So yeah, you just put the gauze around like that.
Because I can't bend my arm,
It's
'cause
taking
you
two of us
just,
to do this.
yeah.
So just the gauze itself, and then what we do is, I mean, we gotta use duct tape, we gotta use
Down
whatever
here.
we can, you know, to make it secure.
If you want, you can use this one. This one's longer.
See, and like even on a gentleman like that, you wouldn't be able to put just one.
Wait a minute.
So-
At the end of this objective, at the end of this unit, you'll be able to describe your CERT organization and structure. You'll be able to identify how CERT interlates with the Incident Command System, ICS, and also be able to explain the requirements for documentation. This unit is going to provide you with the understanding of CERT organization, mobilization, and also documentation. Okay, in case of a disaster, on-scene management has 3 primary goals. One is to maintain the safety of our disaster workers, and that's going to be done by the incident commander. We're going to talk about who's the incident commander. Okay, and that's where the incident commander is going to prioritize responses, activities based on the team's capabilities and training, and also provide clear leadership and organizational structure. And we're going to do that by developing a chain of command. And also improve the effectiveness of rescue efforts, again, in providing that information to the ICS, and also, again, maintaining that training for for our CERT members. And then for CERT members, they're going to identify the scope of the incident. They're going to see what is the problem, whether it's a burning building after an earthquake. They're going to determine the overall strategy depending on our capabilities and training. They're also going to deploy resources. They're going to see who's going to do that, whether depending on the personnel that it's provided to you, or whether it's firefighters, law enforcement. That's we're going to decide who's going to do that. And then also very important in CERT, we're always going to document the actions and results. We're going to watch, is this the video? Yes. We're going to watch a short video to see how important effective communication is.
Das hier ist mein Sektor. Das hier ist das wichtigste Gerät des Küstenwächters. Das Gerät das Überlebensradar. Mayday, Mayday. Hello, can you hear us? Can you hear us? Can you... over. We are sinking. We are sinking. Hello? This is the German Coast Guard. We're sinking. We're sinking. What are you thinking about?
Pretty funny, huh? Okay, so the incident command system is a system that is used by many emergency agencies. It was developed by FireScope, the Firefighting Resources of California, organized for potential emergencies. It was originally developed as an approach to the problem of managing rapidly wildfires. Before this system, they even had a system. There were too many people reporting to one supervisor. There was no span of control. There were different emergency organizing structures, and there was an unclear line of authority. The terminology was different, and also an unclear or an unspecified objective. And again, this system is used by fire agencies, law enforcement, and other public applicants. These are some of the advantages of ICS. There's the chain of command, the transfer of command, span of control to help us manage those teams that are going to be out there conducting these operations. And there's the common terminology. There's modular organization, personnel accountability, incident action plans, objectives, assignments, and tactics, and the comprehensive resources management.
Real quick, transfer of command, does anybody know what that means?
Changing shifts?
Changing shifts. But you want to be able to make sure that the person coming on to take command of the entire incident is able to do so with ease. You want them to have that briefing and be able to do it so that the incident command system structure allows that simple transfer of command. Also, the span of control. Span of control has, who knows what that means as far as what they mean when they say span of control?
How much oversight you have?
Correct. It's how many people one person can effectively supervise or oversee. If I were here alone instructing this class without the rest of the team here, there'd be a lot of people for me to oversee and try and teach and control and educate. But with having multiple instructors, I'm able to break it down. I had 2 instructors here doing the bandaging and splinting, and I had 2 instructors on the other side doing the head-to-toe assessment. The ideal span of control is 1 supervisor to 3 to 7 staff members. And so ideally it's going to be 3 to 5, but you can go up to 7. And so the way that it works is you can actually break it up into different groups.
Okay, here is a chart for the basic ICS structure. And before, when I talked about the incident commander, who becomes the incident commander? It's the first person on scene when a disaster happens. And this person, the incident commander, uses this structure, and therefore can bring other sections into the planning of this. You have your operations section. These are our doers. These people are responsible for coordinating coordinating all of the incidental tactic operations. And then you have logistics, which are our getters. These people are responsible for obtaining whatever needs we need, whether it's food, medical supplies, or a facility to communicate. Also planning, these are our planners, and they're responsible for collecting and evaluating all of this situation information, status reports. And then we have our finance and admin, and these are our bankers, and they're gonna monitor the incident-related costs and whatever's being spent to for the disaster and stuff. Here, for CERT, they must establish a command structure, and that's going to be, again, the first person on scene, and that person becomes the incident commander or team leader. And also make a command post nearby where the disaster has happened. And also, and you can also expand more on that chart as structure is needed. And then you have IC, the incident commander can appoint operations, logistics, planning chiefs as necessary. These are the different sections that we talked about, whether the getters, the bankers, the planners. And organization grows to keep in line with span of control. That's managing the other teams that operation has out there, whether they're doing fire suppression, light search and rescue. Here is more of a local government chart and how it expands more into detail.
This is actually, this shows you the CERT organization, how it relates to ICS. You have the government liaison, which would be probably a city staff member, myself, anybody on the team, that the CERT incident commander would report to. The CERT structure has its own ICS system within itself, and so the way the fire department operates is you have an incident commander and you have everybody down below. You have the sections chiefs for the operations, planning, logistics, and finance and admin. CERT, again, because this is a standardized system, is going to follow that same system. But within your organization or within your team, you're going to have that own structure. So with the CERT organization chart, we have the government liaison, which is city staff. You have the CERT incident commander, which, as Freddie said, is the first CERT person to arrive on scene. That is similar to a professional responder, that the first person arriving on scene is going to be the incident commander until they're relieved by someone that is of a higher authority or someone that has more knowledge or training under that field. And so if I show up and I'm the incident commander and my supervisor shows up, he's going to now become the incident commander. Fire departments, you have the captain that's on scene. Once the battalion chief shows up, the battalion chief is in charge. If the district chief shows up, that person's going to be in charge. Or the battalion chief may retain that authority because the district chief doesn't have the specialty skills in addressing this specific type of fire. They may be there to offer more assistance on the administrative level and get requests moving along faster. And so this shows you the basic CERT command structure. You have the different sections, and again, keeping in mind span of control. We have the operations section that shows fire suppression, search and rescue, and medical under the operations section. Under the planning, we have documentation and incident status. If this incident grows larger, that we need additional fire suppression teams or search and rescue teams or additional medical teams are setting up other areas, we can go ahead and flip to the next slide and we'll show how the section for operations grows with the incident and to keep in line with the span of control. So on the first slide, we showed you the individual groups, the fire suppression, search and rescue, and medical. This slide shows that we have 3 teams under search and rescue now, or fire suppression, and then a staging area. So we need somewhere to put all these volunteers in to keep them so they're not just running around, or if we need them that they're across the field doing something else. So we want to have everybody staging in one area, but we need someone to manage that. Then we have the individual teams that we have identified as Team A, Team B, and Team C. And again, those are keeping in line of span and control. Those teams should not exceed more than 8 people, 1 team leader and 7 team members. If it gets larger, then we're going to create another team. If it gets larger still, we're going to create another team. And so it grows with the incident. If the fire or the incident starts to downsize, we can eliminate one of those teams and have them check back into the staging area and go through the debriefing process. Same thing with your search and rescue, and same thing with your medical. Medical team, we had to set up a triage team, a treatment team, and a morgue team so that we can monitor and keep track of those areas while maintaining that efficient span of control.
Without an IC, incident commander, incidents are a flop. Remember Brian said earlier how in CERT we use acronyms for everything. So remember with flop, finance, logistics, operations, and planning. And with that, I'll go ahead and handle it to Jan.
When dealing with media, you refer inquiries to CERT incident commander. Do not respond to any questions or comments. NIMS, I believe it stands for National Incident Management System. NIMS is incident management that all medical or first responder uses. It helps government of all levels to, including CERTs, to be able to use this to work together and better respond to all disaster and emergency.
So real quick, NIMS is a national standard that was developed after Hurricane Katrina. State of California, before we were NIMS compliant, had a system called SIMS, the Standardized Emergency Management System. And that's to make sure that everybody in the state of California had a standardized system so that a fire department truck rolling to a fire in Northern California, or in case of wildfires, we've got resources coming from other areas, that their fire hose and their equipment match what our fire hydrants and everything are here. This was expanded to a national level because of Hurricane Katrina, and so if we need to send resources to Florida for a wildfire, we have all the standard system and its terminology, and if we say we need a task force that would respond, we don't have to say, well, that includes 1 fire truck, 1 ladder truck, 1 paramedic, 1 water tanker, or whatever that task force is identified as. And so the sections that are up on the screen, the IS 100A, IS 700B, are classes that you can take online, and those are a basic introduction to the SIMS, NIMS, and ICS systems that you can complete at the FEMA website.
Okay, if you guys look at the slide, you guys see the two classes, or the two units up there, the IS 100 and the IS 100. They're offered through FEMA. If you guys want more knowledge on the ICS and NIMS. CERT mobilization. You gotta take care of yourselves, your family, your home and neighbors. You are number one priority, and if you can't take care of yourself, what makes you think you could take care of other people? Second, you will proceed to a pre-designated area. For example, if the disaster was to happen in Temple City, our pre-designated area would be the EOC, which is the Emergency Operation Center, which is here. The incident commander is established, organize a group, and prioritize actions. Can someone tell me who becomes incident commander?
First person.
First one on scene.
First one on scene. Rescue safety is first priority. Always ask yourself if the scene is safe to enter or if it's safe to even attempt a rescue. So if it's heavy damage, no rescue should be attempted. One of our duty is to, block off or caution up the area, the damaged area, and you could warn others about the area. And but you can't legally stop someone from entering the premises. Moderate damage, you locate, triage, and evacuate. Light damage, you locate, triage, continue size up, and document. Documentation is very important. It makes it possible for a resource to be deployed effectively and for professional emergency service to apply appropriately. The section chief provides command posts with information. The command posts then document situation status such as incident, location, access routes, identify hazard, and support location. Documentation. It's very important you write down what happened. Okay, documentation consists of 8 standard forms. It helps with information flow and documentation. They are what's listed up there: damage assessment, personnel resource sign-in, incident assignment tracking log, briefing assignment, victim treatment area, records, communication log, equipment inventory, and general messages. We have a few exercises. Can someone tell me who's responsible for each and one of these scenarios? It's dark, all the lights are out, you need additional flashlights, continue response. Who will we go to?
Mike.
Someone?
Logistics.
Logistics? Yep.
Mike.
Mike.
Oregon Ducks.
Oh.
Whatever.
Next one. A news crew has arrived with a camera to film your activities.
Incident commander.
Yep.
Very good.
Next one. A neighbor reports the smell of gas in the house, but he cannot shut off the gas at the meter.
Operations.
Okay, for this, I'm gonna ask everybody not to look at your handouts. I see everybody kind of reading it. Go ahead and close your handouts and try and answer those without assistance from the
Meter.
That's why Mike answered first, huh?
You're all like, whoa, they know this pretty well.
The IC is very tired and is going to hand over responsibility to someone else. She wants a report on the status of the neighborhood before doing so.
Planning. Very good. Was she looking at
Here,
her
that
handout?
was the default elimination process, whatever you oh, and now.
Process of elimination. Far from another neighborhood is moving towards your neighborhood. Operations.
Operations of what?
Why is it planning? Who said operations?
I said,
Okay. Why did you say operations?
because the first reaction is stop the fire.
Okay.
Yes.
Who would have said planning? You know, why would you have said planning?
Because they're the ones that plan what the next stage is. The operations is a doer.
Correct. So this is just information that the threat is advancing towards our neighborhood. So until the fire is here, we can't do anything. But what we can do is we can plan and prepare what our resources are and where we're going to place those resources. And so that's why it's planning. If it says your neighborhood was on fire, then yeah, operations would handle that.
Next one, it's starting to rain. Your command post and the first aid area are not under shelter.
Logistics.
Logistics. Second, several of our neighbors have minor injuries and need first aid. Wayne?
Operations.
Last one. A professional responder has arrived at the scene and would like a briefing on situation status. Who would they go to? Okay, unit summary. ICS provides flexible means of organization. Always ask yourself, is it safe to attempt a rescue? Document and communicate information to all CERT levels. Provide command posts with ongoing information about damages assessment, group status and needs. And command posts document and track situation status.